Hello. Day 20. Day 60. Day 60. Day 60. I wish I had a cup of coffee. Day 60. Little boy, George is here. I want to talk about the future and where this all ends up for the UK. Oh no, little boy. It's nearly porridge time. It's nearly porridge time, George. You can't have coffee. No. As societies and as people, we're divided by many things. Rich and poor, young and old, tall and short, black and white. Class in this country, we're divided by class. Do you want the boy? Do you want him, Mum? Are you ready? Okay. Here we go. And of course, well and sick. There's nothing that divides like sickness and health. Graphically illustrated by the fact that our Prime Minister is sick, so he cannot perform at the moment. And if we had to choose between a sick Prime Minister and a well Prime Minister, you would choose the well Prime Minister. Now, the way that nations have dealt with this disease has varied culturally, and some have, the younger nations, the more nimble nations, those less weighed down by the baggage of history, by the baggage of, say, empire, have been able to deal with this in a humble, practical, uninhibited, unencumbered by the trappings of history set of interventions. They've looked at the problem practically, and they've applied practical solutions to what is essentially a practical problem. And dealing with this disease is incredibly simple. Once you realise that it's spread by human beings, it doesn't spread itself. You just keep the human beings apart from the human beings, and you enforce this. You don't sort of suggest. You don't urge. You don't advise. You tell. You tell people what to do, and you legislate. And you are also very humble. You don't say, oh, I'm bigger than this, I'm stronger than this, I'm going to carry on shaking hands, I'm going to make stuff up, I'm going to say I want my job back, and I'm going to march in the street because that's breaking all the rules. You don't do that. And those nations that have been nimble enough, that have been quick thinking enough to grasp this, are coming through this really, really well. Vietnam, Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan. All of these countries as well have one defining, they are quite young countries. They're not weighed down by history, by a sense of self-importance, by a culture which sort of says, oh, we're great. And in this country, we're not great. We were a great power, whatever that may mean, a very long time ago. But we are not that now. But we think we are, and we think we can deal with this in a different way. What will that mean? What that will mean is there will be a new hierarchy in the world. This is supposing that we don't find a virus. If we a vaccine, if we find a vaccine, then things will be able to go back to the way they were, should we want them to go back to the way they were. And I would imagine most people will. There's great dreams at the moment of a new order, of looking at things in a new way, that we value the simple, that we value what is what's important. We value neighbourliness, we value watching the flowers grow, we value baking a loaf of bread, we value our friends, we value our family, all these things. We put less value on greed and wealth and money and trappings and cars and speed and and importance and self-aggrandizement. Anyway, there will be a new order, and that new order will be those nations that are left with their populations untouched and pure, and those that are where the virus is endemic. And those nations where the virus is endemic, the well nations will not deal with them. Well, they will deal with them, but they will deal with anybody who, in the same way as you deal with anybody that you think has AIDS, has smallpox, has there will be hesitance, there will be reluctance. We won't be allowed to travel to their countries. Their citizens will be discouraged from travelling to ours. Now, I can feel some people's hackles going up, but this is just a matter of fact. If you think back to the beginning of all this, I have a friend who runs a Chinese restaurant. He's fourth generation Chinese. And he said in his own restaurant, he did not like Chinese people coming into the restaurant because he said, you know, he didn't stop them, but he said, I felt, you know, I don't want to charge their mobile phones. I don't want to touch their stuff. Now, this is prejudice based on fear. I mean, it's not, but it's also just human nature. I don't blame him one iota. But the UK, America, Spain, Italy, where the virus has been raging and is raging, these nations will be treated as second-class nations. Other nations won't do a lot of business, won't fly here, won't meet with us, won't allow us to go into their nations. Why, if we were absolutely clear of COVID-19 and New Zealand was riddled with it, would we allow New Zealanders to travel to the UK? No. We will become the third world. That's how it's going to be. Because we have no desire to really get a hold of this thing and address the problem. And we still don't. I mean, what is this latest thing about masks? The government, again, is saying that we can wear masks if we would care to, and they are not going to... They're going to encourage it, but it does not mandatory. I mean, I've heard of stricter dress codes for Ascot. I mean, honestly, you know, are we to be advised, oh, and we can wear a cummerbund and you know, a tutu. It's just insanity. That's where we're at. We're going to become a third world nation. Sickness Island. Yeah. All right, listen. Thank you very much.